you. God bless. Uh, it's an important question. You see, we are the world's largest democracy, and that is something to be proud of. Because if you look at what happened after 1947, many newly independent countries started as a democracy, but very soon became either dictatorships or one-party countries. If you look at our neighborhood, there are many examples where democracy was derailed. It's not only in Pakistan, but all across newly independent countries in Africa, in Latin America. And in 1947, there were many Cassandras of doom where India was concerned. That a country as vast as ours, with so many diversities, so many regional identities, whether we will remain a democracy or not. That was a question that was very prominent in minds of well-intentioned observers also. But the amazing and I think very significant achievement was that we did remain a democracy except for the brief aberration of the emergency for about 2 years. And there also, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi herself called for elections after some time. So, for a country that has managed two things simultaneously, both inadequately but have managed it simultaneously, the retention of democracy and some level of economic growth. People say democracy is inefficient, and that examples are given to us of other countries where the cacophony, the occasional anarchy, the inability to implement what leaders think needs to be done immediately and quickly for the good of the country also needs democratic people's approval. That takes time. So it's perhaps less efficient. But in the long run, democracy, as I think Churchill said, is the worst form of government except for all the others, which are even worse. I have served as a diplomat in East Europe in the pre-Cold War days, pre-end of the Cold War days. And here are countries which have overthrown monarchies. Take the Great Russian Revolution. The Tsar was overthrown. People came to power in the name of the people. But soon it became a one-party monopoly. And they usurped to themselves, assumed to themselves the right to interpret what the people want. And so, in many of such countries, elections were held, but they were 100% for one leader or one party. So, democracy existed in form, but not in substance. And I've seen what it can lead to. I mean, I was in, my second posting was as number 2 in a small country. My language was Russian, in Romania. Some of you have heard of a person called Ceausescu. I mean, There is no military dictator who can equal the arbitrary autocracy of Ceausescu. He was the supreme leader and he decided everything. And finally, when change happened in Romania, he was murdered by the anger of the people. Even the faucets in his bathroom were made of gold. There was no accountability. So, democracy is important. Never forget it. The middle class has a tendency to think, यार ये डेमोक्रेसी का हल्ला गुल्ला बंद करो, काम करो, थोड़ा डंडा चाहिए इस देश में, डिसिप्लिन आए, पंक्चुअलिटी आए, जैसे इमरजेंसी के टाइम पे, you'll be surprised the most supported segment of the emergency was the middle class, which said enough of these unruly democratic politicians, enough of the unwashed masses who come out to vote. Let's have a dictatorial regime that moves forward on economic goals so long as they're good for the middle class. But in the end, they found that even they are not immune. I've mentioned this earlier in my lectures. And democracy ultimately is the only thing that is able to keep a diverse and vast country together because it provides a ventilation valve to many concerns which, when suppressed, explode. I gave you the example of my occasion that how Brezhnev told Mr. Gandhi, how can you allow such things? And then the Soviet Union broke up into 13 countries, and he was saying this in the context of Punjab, and Punjab is still very much a part of India, and democratic elections are taking place. So having said that, democracy is never perfect, but some of its imperfections are glaring in our country, for instance. What Rahulji raised. In addition to that, there is undoubtedly the ugly intrusion of unaccountable money. The nexus or link between unaccountable money and politics is the beach of all corruption. Remember that. When those who come to power on the basis of money which is not legit, they will sanctify, justify corruption in its entirety. Whatever they make, there is the use of muscle power. If you look at when I was in the parliament, look at the records of the number of those elected who had criminal records, including abduction, dacoity, and attempt to murder, who had been elected. There are dons in politics. In the state of Bihar, dons don't allow people to vote for another candidate. So that is number two. And number three, there is the complete absence or the near complete absence of inner party democracy. Now, the two are antithetical. The two are completely antithetical. Recently, you had Rishi Sunak becoming the Prime Minister in Britain. And before that, you had Liz Truss. When Boris Johnson had to leave. Now, within the Conservative Party, there were free elections. In America, when elections happen, within either the Democratic or Republican Party, there are several candidates who first fight each other and meet each other in open debates. And then you have an election. Now, in our country, what has happened is because ancient civilizations and the perpetuation of feudal tendencies has led to what the Prime Minister calls Parivarwad or dynastic politics, but on a scale which is unimaginable. In 50s, when Indira Gandhi was appointed as the president of the Congress party, there were allegations that Jawaharlal Nehru was grooming her to be his successor. And in a press conference, he said that the very idea of dynastic succession is repugnant to me. It is something that I cannot even think about. And perhaps he was speaking the truth. Now you have to make a distinction. There is nothing wrong if a politician's progeny child joins politics. My father was a government servant, he was in the ICS, I joined the foreign service. Doctor's son became a doctor, many people from the army joined the army, and so on and so forth. What is wrong is to accept, venerate, and declare a leader to be the leader merely because he happens to be the child of the previous leader. That is dynastic politics. And so, between Panditji and Indira Gandhi, there was Lal Bahadur Shastri. But then Indira Gandhi came, and from then onwards, not only in the Congress party, but across the political spectrum, look around you. Indira Gandhi was succeeded by Rajiv Gandhi. A decent man, I've traveled with him about 18 times on foreign trips when he used to go. He had no interest in politics. And Sonia Gandhi, I know personally, was dead against his joining politics. But before him, his brother Sanjay Gandhi had become the de facto number 2 of the Congress party by virtue of or accident of birth. And when he tragically died in an air crash, Rajiv Gandhi was brought in, and that is dynasty. He was brought in, of course, he won. There was a sympathy wave from Mrs. Gandhi's tragic assassination. Similarly, if you look at in the south, YSR Reddy succeeded by Jagan Reddy. Stalin succeeded by Udaynithi Stalin. KCR grooming his son and daughter. Just look around. Punjab, Badal followed by Badal. UP, Mulayam Singh followed by Akhilesh. Even Mayawati, who is not married, has chosen a nephew to be her successor. Mamata Banerjee, of whose party briefly, because of her insistence, I joined and became vice president. She is not married, but her nephew is heir apparent. Abhishek Banerjee's writ is final. He is the successor. It is taken for granted. So if you go to Jammu Kashmir, for instance, Sheikh Abdullah, Farooq Abdullah, Omar Abdullah, it runs, I mean, in a hierarchical way. I mean, there are leaders who have won also of their own popularity, but that is still not negating the dynastic factor. Naveen Patnaik has won successive elections, but he was Biju Patnaik's son, which is why he was accepted. And of course, if you go to Maharashtra, You had Bal Thackeray, you have Uddhav Thackeray, and you now have, what's the young man's son? Aditya Thackeray. Very nice people. But the principle is one. There are no elections. You have Sharad Pawar, and I happen to know all of them, these people very well, and I know Supriya very well. She was in parliament with me together, so was Sharad Pawar. Now Supriya Sule has been groomed. So, I mean, it is, so sorry, it is, uh, it is endemic. Can I call you? I'm in a meeting now. Can I call you back? I'm in a meeting. So, the short point I'm trying to make is now look at the situation in the largest opposition party. Here we have, after Rajiv Gandhi's death, for a short interregnum, where P.V. Narasimha Rao and Sitaram Kesri become president and Narasimha Rao later become prime minister. But then Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, who was completely averse to being in politics, is not born an Indian. She made a great effort to become Indian. She learned the language, etc., but she is not a fish in water in this country. She becomes the longest serving president of the party, where Gandhiji, Sardar Patel, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, none of them had their children being in politics unless they succeeded on merit. So, after her, you know the scenario where today Khargeji can be president of the party, but the de facto leader is somebody who has no post in the party or in parliament, who happens to be Rahul Gandhi. So, just now elections were held in the Congress, and Shashi Tharoor and I were in St. Stephen's at the same time together. And the constitution of the Congress party allows for a democratic election. So Shashi came to see me at home, and I said, if you are fighting, then don't make it a symbolic fight. Fight for what within the discipline of the party you think needs to change in the party. And it was on that basis that got as many as 1,000 votes in an AICC which is totally undemocratic. It is packed with supporters of the family. And in spite of that, he got 1,000 votes. But then see what happened after that. Because again we met. Instead of co-opting him, he was looked upon as somebody who had the temerity or had dared to challenge the choice of the leadership, family leadership of the party, which was Kharge. He was ostracized until most recently, after months, he has been made by Kharge a member of the CWC. Not only that, those who had supported him were also victimized. Now, imagine a situation where actually free and fair elections take place in a party. If you don't have free and fair elections, the other problem in a democracy is the whip in parliament. When Britain voted on Brexit, there was no whip. A Labour MP could vote for it, a Conservative MP could vote against it. It didn't matter what the party in power was saying. Members of Parliament had the right to think and make up their own mind and vote. But now you have a system of a double whip, a triple whip, three-line whip, where you have to support the party stance. So there's no freedom of choice in parliament. There's no freedom of choice in your political party. And then from every public rostrum you speak about the need for democracy. It doesn't convince me. And it's wrong. It's anti-democratic. A third aspect of it is that when you don't have a dynasty, you can have a personality cult. Where one leader becomes so supreme that the rest become sycophants. Sycophancy is a very developed and sophisticated art in India. एक पुरानी कहावत है, खुशामद में ही आमद है सबसे बड़ी खुशामद. And people, amazingly, I've been a diplomat and now for many years now in politics, people sense what the leader would like to do, and irrespective of what they begin to support it even before that leader. It's called in Hindi Chadukarika. It's rampant, it's pervasive. Because the leader expects it from. And anything short of it is seen as a betrayal. And therefore, if the leader is supreme, even if he does not belong to a biological dynasty, the punitive action is immediate. You're sidelined, you're dropped, you're marginalized. It is the danger of all political parties. And flattery comes so easily to India. And flattery should never be subtle. What is the use of flattery कि वो leader को समझ ही ना आए? ठोक के दो. Now all of this, to my mind, I find revolting in democracy. I was a lateral entrant into the JDU, and Nitish Kumar at that time was a leader with the potential to become Prime Minister. His human integrity, personal integrity, administrative acumen, Hindi heartwell. He was an engineer, a socialist. He personally asked me to join. I became very close to him, but I gave him free and frank advice. And when I felt he and I would not agree on principle, like in the case of not the CEA, but the CEA hyphenated with the NRC. I made my concerns clear, and when he didn't agree, I continued to protest in party forum until I was expelled from the party. And I didn't care. But we remained friends because the dispute was on principle. So all I'm trying to say is that the question that you asked, I'm sorry I gave a slightly longer answer because you must understand the complexities of democracy. Every 5 years going to vote is one aspect of democracy. And things have improved for the better. I mean, at one time, in a state like Bihar, the only thing candidates would count at the end of the day of voting is कि किसने कितने ballot boxes को कब्जा किया. That was the only calculation. That means that much muscle power is what you needed in order to win democratically. किसने कितने ballot boxes पर कब्जा किया. But now you have, people doubt that also, but you have EVM machines. But for that you need a very independent election commission. If that is subverted, you have a problem because the election commission supervises the election. Now there was a move to reform the election commission, to have a three-member committee which included the Prime Minister or Chief Justice of India and Leader of Opposition. But the government did not accept that. And there is a situation now where 2:1 will always remain in favor of the government. And so you can appoint those election commissioners who will do your bidding. And these are things you need to watch carefully. I have a close friend called Ashok Lavasa. Ashok Lavasa was one of the election commissioners. An upward, to my mind, upright, straightforward officer. Now, during the 2019 elections, there was a petition before the election commission on something that Prime Minister Modi and Amit Shah had said, which went against the model code of conduct. On that particular matter, Ashok Lavasa gave a dissenting judgment, saying that yes, it is a violation of the model code of conduct. Now, please don't conclude that what I'm saying is something that I can prove in a court of law has a link, but within 2 weeks, Mr. Lavasa's family members were in. His brother-in-law, his wife, whatever. And ultimately he was given an offer, as he told me, but I cannot vouch for it, that you accept a golden handshake and go as vice president of the ADB in Manila, which has no work, or you face the consequences here. Now, all this is going on under the awning of the world's largest democracy. And Ashok Lavasa, who would have become chief election commissioner by sheer seniority, accepted the offer and moved on to Manila and disappeared for the next 4 or 5 years, getting a good salary, but out of the picture. Similarly, attempts are made to get pliable judges. Sorry, I should switch it on. So, democracy is a multi-layered thing. And there have to be watchguards everywhere before we become a fully mature democracy. And one of the factors in that is dynastic politics, which to my mind is totally undemocratic. Above all, we are an argumentative civilization. We are a civilization of dialogue. I've stressed this before. The Upanishads are a dialogue. The Bhagavad Gita is a dialogue. The Brahma Sutra will always allow the opponent's point of view in its commentaries. Shankaracharya and Mandal Mishra had a dialogue when they disagreed on philosophy. We're a dialogic or civilization. But what is most disturbing in dynastic politics is the complete inertness, frozen inertness of dissent. There's no dialogue. बात पर गालिब साहब बात पर वहां जुबान कटती है, वो कहें और सुना करें. So it's as simple as that. And therefore, we are deprived of something which has been a feature of our civilization for 8,000 years. There are only two parties which were not dynastic in our country. One is the CPIM and one was and is the BJP. But the personality cult is an issue that the BJP also has to take in mind. I hear reports that cabinet meetings nobody speaks now. Earlier, by the way, I was very close to Atalji. I translated his poems on his request. He visited me when I was ambassador in Cyprus as Prime Minister. But there was a collegium. Advani ji, Murli Manohar Joshi ji, Atalji, there were discussions, there could be differences of opinion, like a mature democracy. Now, if that doesn't happen, then even though it's not a dynasty, there is a danger. I'm not saying it has happened. But these are, when you look at democracy, please see it in its fullest perspective with all its complexity. And so, my conclusion is that I'm proud that India is a democracy and a genuine one at that. World's largest democracy also numerically, but certainly below par. Below par with the requirement of a great number of changes.
I don't know where this copy is. Oh, it's okay. Tell me, then you asked me such a provocative question.
Yes, yes.
I think to students, if you have any question, just take your mic and identify yourself.
Myself, Mother. So I would like to ask you about, there are two questions, but one is respect to politicization of religion. जो धर्म का राजनीतिकरण हो रहा है उसके उपलक्ष्य में, और since we have seen like during the freedom struggle led to partition in India, in the subcontinent, the perils of I should say the communism that spread, and one question is with respect to rise of extremism in the contemporary times.
So rise of extremism?
Rise of extremism, both from the extreme left, extreme right, and the fringe groups, by both the state actors, non-state actors, let's say internationally, even the anti-immigrant issue is gaining a lot of this. And the main issue that we have, let's say, vote induction or the SDGs you want to meet, or
keep it short. Sorry, I actually keep it short.
yeah.
So, sir,
So,
what
like
he's asking is politicization of religion in India in recent context, and also partition of country on the basis of religion, and then the rise of extremism from the left to the right, and as a kind
and
of
how
a threat to
the
democracy.
middle class have actually got the plot. So you are getting more educated, more this, but the so-called the center left, center right party, they are actually behind the trend, and everybody is moving towards more extremism. Maybe radical left, radical right, both in the US, UK, wherever you go. That kind of thing.
Thank you. Sir.
Well, you've asked me many questions, so I have to take them seriously. Firstly, you have to understand what secularism means. We began with the principle, even though it was not a specific part of the preamble until 1976. But the assumption was that India is a multi-religious, multicultural, plural nation, perhaps a unified civilizational entity, but within that, a country which over the centuries and millennia have peoples with different faiths, different gods, and actually in the constitution, even if you don't put down secularism in the preamble, that is, I think, Article 25, which gives you the full freedom to freely practice, profess, and propagate your religion, to have the freedom of faith. Now, we got independence in the aftermath of the world's largest dislocation of human people and perhaps the highest number of those killed in this process, more than the Holocaust, which is the partition, which happened, unfortunately, on religious lines or was ignited by the fact that the Muslim League in Jinnah wanted a separate Islamic state of Pakistan. Post-partition, we adopted a constitution to be a country where coexistence is not an option, but a compulsion. And we are a multi-religious nation. Now, in politics, to win elections, very often emotional issues are used. Mrs. Gandhi came up with the slogan, "Desh bachao, garibi hatao." And for the poor, it was an emotive appeal. And she won dividends for it, although nothing much happened for the poor. When Rajiv Gandhi was accused in Bofors, there was a popular slogan, "Gali mein shor hai, Rajiv Gandhi chor hai," although nothing was proved in Bofors. When VP Singh rebelled against Rahul Gandhi on the Bofors issue, a slogan was coined by his supporters. Raja nahi, because he came from a small municipality. Raja nahi, fakir hai, desh ki takdeer hai. These are emotional issues you take up. I was sitting with a poet, politician. I was a young undersecretary in Ministry of External Affairs. His name was, most of you will not know, but a very good poet, and rose to be the General Secretary of the Communist Party, called Pavan Varma. And one day in the evening, while the fire was lit on his whole Southern house, sitting around the fireplace, Rajiv Gandhi had just going in for elections after Indira Gandhi's death. And he was coining a slogan that could appeal to the emotional. And he coined this, "Nai chunauti, naya sandesh." What was the chunauti? Mrs. Gandhi's नई चुनौती नया संदेश सबल है हाथ अखंड है देश. Then he explained to me that the Nara should be such that if the first line is spoken, it should rhyme with those who say akhand hai desh. So there's a way of coining the slogan. I was sitting with him at that time. And Haath was Sabal Haath means that is the Congress symbol. The stable is there. Religion also is used in politics for the same reasons. Earlier, governments were accused of vote bank minority politics. And there is no doubt that some of it took place. when Rajiv Gandhi overruled the very balanced judgment of the Supreme Court in the Shah case. Although his instincts were completely to support the judgment, but on the advice, he was a novice politician, on the advice of so-called experienced politicians in his party that you will alienate the Muslim vote bank. He passed an ordinance and overruled. It happens. Then, if that happens, there is a reaction. A reaction was, in some form, building up among Hindus also. Prior to independence, there was support by Gandhiji to the Khilafat movement. Because of the Congress also by leaders like Dr. Ambedkar. Why should India support a pan-Islamist movement? But Gandhiji did perhaps for well-intentioned reasons of keeping Hindu-Muslim unity. After 47, when Somnath was being built, vandalized 17 times, Gandhiji gave his go-ahead for it, but he says use it by raising public money. Public money was raised, the trust was formed, the temple was renovated. And the President of the Republic, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, was asked by the trust to be there for आजकल तो नया शब्द हो गया प्राण प्रतिष्ठा for the inauguration. And Pandit Ji Jawaharlal Nehru publicly voiced his reservations on the president of the country going for a specific religious occasion. Dr. Rajendra Prasad still went. But the fact that Panditji protested did not go down well with some Hindus. Then when the personal law was modified, only Hindu personal law was modified, the rest were not. In 1953, if you remember, 52. Then only Hindu temples are under government control. Gurdwaras, masjids, churches are not. This caused angst. Then the Shah came. And finally, when the BJP was reduced to just 2 MPs in the House in 1984, they needed an issue to regain that connect with the masses. Lal Krishna Advani, again, whom I knew very well, I edited a book for him when he was Deputy Prime Minister. He started in 1990 the Ayodhya to build a Sri Ram temple. It got the BJP traction. I'm telling you how the connections takes place. Because politics is about appealing to the voter on an issue that has emotional resonance with that person. And the Yatra proceeded. What happened next? As I have said on television recently many times, that was a Maryada. Contrary to what Maryada Purushottam Ram, where illegally a mosque was demolished. The highest rung, Vajpayee ji, Advani ji, everybody expressed deep regret for it. And incidentally, after the mosque was demolished, the BJP, instead of winning the election in UP, was first reduced to the single largest party and then actually lost the election. So it's not as if there was an immediate correlation between religion and political gain. But subsequently, the Ayodhya temple issue began again, and this time it was done through proper procedure, through a Supreme Court judgment. And so a temple is to be inaugurated, या उसकी प्राण प्रतिष्ठा होने वाली है 22 जनवरी. Now, if the BJP and the RSS have been in the forefront of the building of the Ayodhya temple, and it is actually happening as per due process during their rule, obviously they will get political dividends from it and capitalize on it, which is exactly what is happening. And their task is greatly helped by the fact that we have rarely, in my opinion, but it should not be taken as the truth, rarely has the country had a more confused opposition. You cannot welcome the Supreme Court judgment, which all of them did, and then say when the temple is being inaugurated, "Yeah, हम नहीं जाएंगे." या तो कह दीजिए श्री राम, CPIM is clear, we don't go for them and religious functions, and we don't believe the Prime Minister should. The other parties welcome the Supreme Court judgment, now it's being inaugurated. Now the BJP also should have done it perhaps on 9th of April. Ram Navami. Navami Tithi Madhumas Punita Sakal Pach Abhijit Harprita. That's what Tulsidas says. Navami Tithi.
By the time election would have been announced.
But by then, moral code of conduct would have been there, so they have done it on 22nd January. So, different parties use religion for different reasons. OSC and his party, their primary support base lies in an area which is numerically overwhelmingly Muslim. So he has to take a stand and correct me. So by the way, OSC is a very educated man. He speaks well, so he knows the constitution. But he has to appeal to his electorate. The BJP's highest catchment area, 250 seats, come from northwest India. If you take East and South India, there are some 220 seats, of which the BJP has only 54 seats. The see, it's not there in West Bengal, although its presence is increasing. It's not in Odisha, it's not in Tamil Nadu, it's not in Andhra, it's not in Telangana, it's not in Kerala. So, catchment area is this. This is the Hindi-speaking heartland of northwest India, where the Sri Ram temple has a huge emotive impact. So, when you are talking to me about this question of the, what did you say, politicization of religion, or the, if such a word exists, religionization of politics, it is because of the dynamics of election. Now, there is one ombudsman, one empire. Whether it is going beyond a degree or not, and that is the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court can say that a particular law, which is a law which is openly, whose purport is to openly appease one community, is against the Constitution's basic structure, which is, and you must understand what secularism in our country was always defined to be. It was never the French concept of secularism, which speaks of the complete separation of state and church. Although it doesn't really happen, because in France they are more partial to Christians. They won't allow a Sardarji to go with a patka to school, or a Muslim woman to go with a burqa, but Catholics can go with a cross, a chain with a cross. Anyway, that apart, but the concept in France is total separation of state and church. But in India, that was not the way secularism was defined. It is not as though President Zain Singh, as a Sikh, when he was president, could not go to a Gurudwara. But what it implied was that if required, he would also go to a temple, he could also go to a mosque. So, it is not a total separation, but it is the spirit of the constitution, the language of the constitution is respect for all faiths, sarv dharm ya sarv panth sambhav. Now, if that is being initiated, then we have to ask ourselves as citizens, if the ruling party, for instance, does not have a single MP, MLA, or minister from the largest minority of the country, you could ask yourself whether बाकी सब निकलने हैं या यही इलेक्टोरेट है। मैंने आपसे पहले कहा था कि क्रिश्चियंस भी हमारी कंट्री में है, 2% they are more than the combined population of Hungary and Greece, and they are all spread out. So you have to live with each other. You have to carry everyone along. सबका साथ, सबका विश्वास, सबका विकास. But you have to see it in reality. So religion and politics can never be kept apart, but the degree to which they can be apart is a matter of democratic sense of proportion. And the citizens, ultimately the citizens can say कि भैया ये सब तो ठीक है, श्री राम टेम्पल बनाया और कृष्ण भगवान का भी बनाएंगे, but वो रोजगारी का क्या हुआ? What happened to prices? What happened to jobs? What happened to universities? What happened to education? What happened to primary health care? Go 100 kilometers out of Delhi, go to a school, just as an exercise in a village. या तो स्कूल है, बिल्डिंग है तो टीचर नहीं है, टीचर है तो बिल्डिंग नहीं है. We are producing millions of unemployable graduates from substandard basic education. That is a demographic dividend. So ultimately the citizen will say, ये हो चुका भाई बहुत, हम भी श्री राम को मानते हैं. But what about other priorities? For that you need an opposition to build a counter narrative. Counter narrative बनाने वाले है ही नहीं कोई. That's the point.
Yeah, ask questions. Yeah. Your name and keep questions short.
सर myself देवराम, मेरा जैसे एक छोटा सा सवाल है, जैसे कि आपने कहा कि अभी राम मंदिर जो बन रहा है उससे बेटर कि एम्प्लॉयमेंट वगैरह हो जाता वगैरह, तो सर मैं दरअसल ये बताना चाह रहा हूँ, जैसे कांग्रेस टाइम में जब देश आज़ाद हुआ, तब 1947 में जब देश आज़ाद हुआ, तो सर जब हमारा देश का पार्टीशन हुआ था 1947 में, तो सर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में एक बात है जो कही गई थी कि जब तक हर एक हिंदू इंडिया में वापस नहीं आता और हर एक मुस्लिम पाकिस्तान नहीं चला जाता तब तक पार्टीशन मान नहीं जाएगा. एक तो चीज ये थी. दूसरी चीज सर ये कि जो आजादी के बाद में हमारा देश पूरी तरह से आजाद नहीं हुआ, 70 साल के करीब आजादी के टाइम में हमारे देश में अराउंड 700 से मैक्स 1000 के करीब जैसे मदरसे थे. कांग्रेस ने आज की डेट में सर 6 से 7 लाख मदरसे हैं. तो सर अगर कांग्रेस ने उनकी जगह हॉस्पिटल वगैरह कुछ बनाए होते तो हमारे देश को जोड़ होता. और सर प्लस जो बीजेपी कर रही है सर, जहाँ तक हमें पता है हमारा देश की जीडीपी पहले से काफी राइज हुआ है. इवन कोविड टाइम के बाद भी हमारी देश की जीडीपी ने काफी रेज किया है. और सर रही बात सेकुलरिज्म की, तो सर सेकुलरिज्म हमारा देश पहले काफी बड़ा था. अफगानिस्तान, बांग्लादेश, पाकिस्तान, इवन तिब्बत, कश्मीर, सर हमने सेकुलरिज्म के चलते बहुत कुछ खोया हमारे देश में. और सर अगर यहाँ पे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, सर अगर हमारे देश में कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है तो सर एक वक्फ बोर्ड एक्ट है हमारे उसमें कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में, वक्फ बोर्ड एक्ट. सर आपको तो पता हो उसमें क्या है, तो सर क्या ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के लिए सही भी है? और सर माइनॉरिटीज, ठीक है माइनॉरिटीज रहे, बट सर उनके हिस्से की मस्जिद की जमीन हमने 1947 में उनको दे दी, ये जमीन हिंदुओं के हिस्से में आई थी, तो सर इसमें वो कुछ नहीं बोल सकते जो कि मैं हाँ।
आपका सवाल, बहुत से लोग ऐसे हैं जिनकी चिंताओं को दर्शाता है, और अच्छी बात भी। एक लोकतंत्र में सभ्य संवाद तो होना चाहिए। पहली बात, तो कभी भी संविधान में ये नहीं कहा गया था कि अब सारे हिंदू इधर रह जाए और सारे मुसलमान उधर चले जाए। ये एक जगह मुझे दिखा दीजिए तो मैं अपनी बात पर विराम कर दूं। पाकिस्तान ने कहा था कि उनको एक इस्लामिक स्टेट ऑफ पाकिस्तान चाहिए, हमने एक रिपब्लिक की घोषणा की थी, गणतंत्र, और दोनों में बहुत अंतर है। और जो माइनॉरिटीज भारत में स्वयं स्वतः रुक गई, कभी भी ये मंशा नहीं थी कि उनको किसी तरह भी इस देश से बाहर किया जाए, और करना भी असंभव था। 25% केरला अगर मुस्लिम है, 30% वेस्ट बंगाल मुस्लिम है, यूपी में आज 18 से 20% आबादी का मुस्लिम है, 18% 17% बिहार में है, 14% कर्नाटक में है, 12% तमिलनाडु में है। आप कहां से किसको किसको उठा के कहेंगे आपका ये घर है, अब घर नहीं आप जाइए? तो ये तो एक, मैं समझता हूं अव्यवहारिक बात है कि कहना कि सब उधर चले जाए, सब उधर आ जाए। हाँ, कुछ लोग गए, अपने मर्जी से गए। दूसरे, जो ऐसे देशों में अल्पसंख्यकों के साथ व्यवहार किया वो गलत किया। आज हिंदुओं की हालत पाकिस्तान में या बांग्लादेश में भी या और मुल्कों में आप देखें, अफगानिस्तान में और जगह, मेरे समझ से ह्यूमैनिटेरियन नहीं। इसका मतलब ये तो नहीं कि हम भी वही करें क्योंकि वो ये कर रहे हैं। पॉइंट नंबर 2। पॉइंट नंबर 3, अगर आप करने की कोशिश भी करें, मैं हमेशा कहता हूं इट्स एन इम्प्रैक्टिकल आइडिया। आपके देश में ऐसा करना जो एंडेमिक इंस्टेबिलिटी लाएगा, उससे आपकी अर्थव्यवस्था पर भी असर पड़ेगा। देखिए, इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ और सोशल हार्मनी के बीच में एक लिंक होता है। तो एक तो ये बात आपकी। दूसरे, वक्फ बोर्ड की आपने बात की, उसमें संशोधन की जरूरत है। पर जैसे मोहन भागवत जी ने कहा कि हर मस्जिद को खोद करके उसके नीचे मंदिर ढूंढना भी बेवकूफी है। और अगर आपने सोचा कि इतने मस्जिद हमने दे दिया तो अब ये हिंदुओं को सब वापस कर देना चाहिए, ये तो मोहन भागवत कह रहे हैं, आरएसएस के चीफ। चौथी बात यह है कि मदरसों में सुधार की जरूरत है। आप ये मत देखिए कि कितने मदरसे 1947 में थे, तब हमारी पॉपुलेशन थी 300 मिलियन, आज वो है 140 करोड़। तो आबादी के हिसाब से मंदिर भी बढ़े हैं और मदरसे भी बढ़े हैं। तो मदरसों में क्या सिखाया जा रहा है, इस पर मैं समझता हूं कि सरकारों का प्रदेश और स्तर पर, केंद्रीय स्तर पर कुछ हस्तक्षेप की जरूरत है। और बहुत जगह तो अपने आप हो चुका है कि कंप्यूटर्स भी सिखाए जा रहे हैं, क्योंकि आखिरकार लोगों को रोजगार भी तो चाहिए। बदलाव हो रहा है, पहले नहीं।
University to have problems.
वो उसी तरह से ऐसे कुछ हमारे देश में अखाड़े भी हैं जहां घृणा, द्वेष और हिंसा के अलावा कुछ नहीं सिखाया जा रहा। मैं मिसाल दे सकता हूँ। हाँ, मैं ये नहीं कह रहा कि ये आरएसएस के अखाड़े हैं, पर है तो उधर भी एक निगाह रखने की जरूरत है, क्योंकि अतिवाद हो सकता है कि आपको लगता हो, और मैं तो लोकतंत्र आप कि सिर्फ इस्लाम में है, अतिवाद सिखिज्म में भी है, अतिवाद हिंदुओं में भी हो सकता है कम हो ज्यादा हो, पर हिंदू धर्म या सनातन धर्म आज 8000 से इसलिए चला आ रहा है क्योंकि उसमें वो एक काबिलियत है कि सबको अपने साथ लेके चले। हमारे जो महावाक्य है वही कहते हैं एकम सत्य विप्रहा बहुधा वदन्ति। तो ये हमारी पहचान रही है, इसी की वजह से आज हम जीवित हैं। हिंदू सनातन धर्म आज भी जीवित उतना ही है, पर मैं समझता हूं कि गड़े मुर्दे इतिहास के आज के समय उनको उखाड़ना न तो आपके हित में न मेरे हित में, क्योंकि हम उससे 80 साल आगे निकल चुके हैं। और अफसोस की लास्ट बात ये है, जब मोहन भागवत जी, क्योंकि आरएसएस के बारे में मैं जानता हूँ, जयपुर लिटरेचर फेस्टिवल में आगे मेरा मनमोहन वैद्य जी से आरएसएस के नंबर 3 और उसके साथ प्रोग्राम में संवाद भी है। आरएसएस के लोग दूर की सोचते हैं, वो तात्कालिक फायदा नहीं देखते। वो समझते हैं कि इस देश में सबको लेकर के ही चलना पड़ेगा, पर जो असमानताएं आ गई थी, जो तुष्टीकरण आ गया था, उसको बंद करना। तो मोहन भागवत जी एक मस्जिद गए, कुछ जाने माने मुसलमानों से मिले, एक संवाद के लिए उनको ट्रोल किया, ऑपोजिशन में नहीं, उन्हीं के पार्टी के अतिवादियों ने, कि आप तो हिंदू धर्म को बेच आए। तो ये प्रवृत्तियां जो है अतिवाद, हमको सब धर्मों से बचने की जरूरत है। और मुख्य धारा जो हमारी रही है कि हम आनो उदार चरितानम वसुदैव कुटुंबकम के राह पे चले तो अच्छा।
Thank you, sir. We end this session at this point in time.